hopefully when I put this tone on, it's still a little bit too dark perhaps, the house will start to become more three-dimensional. Okay. And then we can do a little bit more. Again, going slightly stickier. Okay, can you see how that's beginning to, just by using one colour, it's beginning to take on a three-dimensional shape. And if I go really, really sticky, would have been an idea if I cleaned my brushes before I came. Okay, and this is where I talk about contrast. If we want that roof to really stand out, then if we put some really high value shrubbery, trees behind it, hopefully that will make it stand out a little bit further. Plant it in the ground a bit. Okay. Just with one colour. And if you want to give it even more impact, then perhaps if we take a bit of cobalt blue, mix a little bit of burnt umber with it. So I'm using a second colour here, which is not strictly right, but here we go. Where I've got a tone here on the greenery and a tone on the wall, which is very, very similar, I can make the choice there and make this little bit here slightly darker. And all of a sudden, I'm beginning to define the corner of that wall.
Is this paper dried before you start, or have you prepared the paper?
No, that's just a bit of very thin, cheap Fabriano actually, but it's very, very thin. Okay.
You leave the roof with snow on, do you?
Well, yeah, I mean that's...
Looks like snow.
It does look, yeah, a snow scene if you like, and what we can do is just put in one or two little sort of tones down here. So you've got sort of snowy type thing, and then sort of garden gate, affair, etc. Maybe a hedge down there, whatever. Okay, so you can just build it up. It's a very interesting thing to do, just with one colour, or maybe just the two colours, and just try to get a three-dimensional view of the whole thing, or three-dimensional effect, by using tones. Right. Yes, I was going to show, if I can find it. I'll show this one, right? You recognise this cottage down the road. It's the Memorial and Cottage. That was the first attempt, which I rejected, because overall it's all right, but there's not a lot of captured light, and the tones sort of merge into each other, And so that was the second attempt, with more light.
Better.
Yeah, yeah. And, well, hopefully you'll see that the top one just gives you a little bit more impact than the bottom one. Okay? So that's just me making a choice. The shapes are the same, the arrangement's the same with the people, etc. But in this case, I've just filled in a little bit too much, because that's what the photograph showed me I should do, perhaps. All right? But by making choices and introducing light, then you get higher impact. Just to show you one or two other rejects. Yeah, I mean, there's no captured light there at all, actually. Complete reject. Look, no captured light at all. Horrible mutt. Okay, reject. Whereas that one there's perhaps a little bit better, light and dark. Okay, so it begins to work a bit better. And this one here, I managed to do on the first attempt. That's the view down West Street, again with a fair amount of captured light. Okay, so that's the important thing. Okay, now if I can find what I did with that. Oh, here we go. Yes. This is the picture you've got in your handout, and it's okay, it's all right, but the tones are very much middle tones. There's not a lot of difference there. So very, very quickly, I'm just going to show you how you can change that and at the same time capture light. So we've got this lovely area here which is in the distance. I want to retain that, but I want to bring the building forward. So straight away, if I start using much richer, much darker tones, I'll bring that building into... All right, see how that's going? Same with the other roof as well. Create more shadow work perhaps. So down here, all right, so that's bringing the building a little bit further forward. We'll put a nice shadow there underneath the eave. Same there perhaps. Okay, it's probably just a little bit too heavy. That'll be all right. Actually, that's in shadow too, so we'll just bring that down a little bit. So again, you see the light area here, because I'm putting darker beside it, is beginning to come out a little bit. And the whole thing is moving away from this distant area here. In the handout, I also mentioned temperature. So that things in the foreground, you want them to be warm. Things in the background, you want them to be cooler. Cooler makes things recede. Warmer brings things forward. So if I use a nice warm colour like burnt sienna or burnt umber on some of this. Oops. That brings that fence forward. It's a nice warm brown. Do the same at the bottom here, mix a bit of that with a bit of green. Just using warmer shades, slightly more intense shades, a higher tone. That brings that grass bank closer to it, so we can use a bit of yellow ochre, which is a little bit darker. Put that in here. And then on the trees here, Actually, I'll start on the trunk first. You can really darken that up. Obviously, I'm brushing it. So that brings that much closer to the eye. And then if we use a bit of darker foliage. And what I'm beginning to do is something I saw Stephen do the other week, where Stephen produced that lovely, lovely mountains in the distance scene. Stuck a couple of great green things. I thought, what is he doing there? But of course, what he was doing is capturing the light. It's simple, and it works. By putting foliage on either side, he concentrated the eye into the centre, into the distant mountains, which amplified the distant mountains. Okay, this is very, very rough and crude, as you can see. Okay, but basically what I'm doing is just increasing the tone and making the colours warmer there. And I could do the same over here as well. And then to capture some more light, I can put some shadow in. Use a bigger brush for that. There's a lot of light round there, so if we... There is, doesn't matter. In fact, it's the right colour. That's what I call a happy accident. Okay. All right, can you see how that's beginning to, hopefully... Yeah, it's changed it quite a bit. If you compare that with the picture you've got on your thing. And I could carry on and carry on and carry on and carry on. So even paintings that you've done previously, which you've rejected or whatever else, I think, oh, they're awful. You can change them. Never throw a painting away if you can help it. Because you can practice on them, change the tones, capture the light. When you make things darker, the lights which are beside them become lighter. And so this area here in the distance actually looks further in the distance. Okay? Right. It's a very simple lesson, but we tend to forget it. I tend to forget it quite a bit. And it's because sometimes we get too caught up in the photograph. Whereas we should make our own decisions. Use the photograph for the shapes. You combine photographs quite a bit so that you can make it a nice arrangement. But then make your own choice over tones in order to capture the light. Okay. Right. What we'll do now is we'll try this tonal painting. We'll get it going, and then we'll have a break.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, of course. Please.
I just did, didn't I, really? Whilst I was abroad recently, I did find a set of paints which were shades of grey, whites and blacks, and that's all it was.
Yeah.
There's no other colours in it.
Yeah.
So I bought it, and it was really quite easy to do what we're doing on different tones around the whites and blacks and greys by having just a set with it all in there. Is there anything, I don't know, can you buy it over here? I've never seen anything.
I think I've seen them over here, yes. Yes, I think I have, in watercolour.
Yeah.
And in fact, not just in coloured paints, but you can get them very often in pens. I've got a set of sepia pens, or grey pens, which go through from black right the way down to a lighter colour. So you can certainly get those. Faber-Castell do those.
As a set?
As a set, yes. Yeah.
But you can really do things with
Yeah.
tones then.
Yes, you do. Yes, yeah. With watercolour, of course, we're creating the tones by how much water we put in.
Yes.
Right. With acrylics, oil paints and so forth, you're using maybe a mixing white to make tones lighter mixed into the colour. And to make them darker, I'm not quite sure what you do. But with watercolour, in some senses, it's actually a bit easier because you're just using the water. Victoria?
Hello. Yeah, I was just going to say, when I was at sixth form, many years ago, I did a big painting in acrylic with just Prussian blue and white.
Yeah.
And it was a still life, and it was really, really challenging. It turned out really well because it was just shades of Prussian blue and
Absolutely,
white.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
really interesting to do.
It is. When you do these tonal paintings, just as a pure catch-up exercise or whatever else, or practice exercise, it does teach you an awful lot about shadows. It teaches you an awful lot about creating a three-dimensional effect, because you've actually cut out one of the things that you sometimes use to create a three-dimensional effect, i.e. different colours. If you're limited to one colour, it forces you to really look at tones. And hopefully, that's what we'll do in the exercise together. It will force you to look at tones. Now, if you can then just introduce a little bit of that into your paintings, then I think you'll all benefit. So, the painting we're going to do is based on this photograph at the bottom of the last page, which is a cottage with a lane. To a certain extent I've cheated because it's a very contrasting photograph anyway. Okay, so there's a lot there which you can almost copy as far as tone is concerned. So the first thing we'll do is we'll simply draw it up. It's quite a simple thing to draw. And then we'll start putting on one or two of the early shades. Now what colour you use is entirely up to you. I'm going to use probably a burnt umber, I think. But you could use cobalt blue, you could use any kind of colour you wanted to. But do remember that some colours will give you a wider tonal range. So if you wanted to do it in indigo, or in a grey or whatever else, get the name of that, then, Payne's grey, that will give you a very, very wide tonal range. And what I was going to do, what I should have done, was just to actually give you that demonstration of the different range. So this is Payne's grey. And if we start off very, very intense, introduce a little bit more water to it. Okay, there's quite a wide tonal range. So I'm just repeating myself here because it's important when it comes down to the choice of colour. If I use the yellow ochre, it's all very well looking at it on a handout, but actually to see it, that'll probably start there, tonally, around about there, look. Coming down. And the burnt umber, which I'm going to use, is probably about there in terms of intensity. Okay. Does everybody understand that? That some colours, because they've got much high chroma, much more intense, they're much darker in the intense range. Coming down, you get the really nice and light. But other colours, like the yellow ochre, you can't get that same intense tone with them. They're just not made that way. And so they have a lower tonal range. And when you're doing a tonal picture, then very often one with a higher tonal range is going to be more successful. Having said that, I've seen some very nice ones done with yellow ochre. It depends how dark you want to be. Okay? So what we'll do is just start it off. Now, this is a bit of paper that I stretched. I discovered it was buried in my little studio.